Welcome to the Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast, bringing you the country's top podcast on the subject of internet marketing with your hosts, Glenn Thayer and the CEO of Intuitive Websites, Thomas Young.
We're going to talk about Etsy.com and Pinterest.com. We're really going to look at these two websites that are really attractive for women. They're really building, they're getting a lot of momentum. They've grown dramatically over the last few years, and they've really influenced that marketplace. Tom, what do you think the main draw is for Etsy.com and Pinterest?
Well, their main draw is their appeal to women. I mean, and here's the thing. I mean, we're a bunch of guys here, mostly at Intuitive Websites, and I think it's important to realize that over half the marketplace online is women, and what Etsy and Pinterest are doing is really appealing to that emotional instinct in women around shopping and buying and so forth. And they've just done a fabulous job at that. And so I thought we should have a podcast to talk about that and to figure out, what can website marketers in general learn about what Etsy and Pinterest are doing, and not so much, what it is they sell or whatever, but it's really how they go about selling and how they go about displaying items and so forth. And I think that the connection on the emotional level is the thing that we can learn about these two websites. It can almost become an addiction with women. And it's really just amazing to see how this visual enticement can bring women in and have them spend lots and lots of time on the website, lots of time sharing. And then some folks or women are starting stores on Etsy that are actually livelihoods for them. So it even goes beyond that emotional connection to where they're actually making a living with these websites.
Let's take a step back for a quick moment for people who may not know about Pinterest and Etsy.
Yep.
Let's explain what they are. Go to Pinterest.com. Pinterest it's more of like a photo sharing website. Most people connect it to their Facebook account. That's where I've seen the majority of, hey, I pinned this on Pinterest. And it's huge. If you want to see photos of what's going on, fall collections, this is what I want to do to my house. This is what I want to cook for dinner. Look how beautiful this meal looks. Look at this new dress I'm thinking of buying. All the way to people putting like internet memes on Pinterest. I mean, it's everything is on there. And then Etsy is more of an online store, is where you can go purchase things. People build their Etsy profiles and they sell it. It's a marketplace for small business and arts and crafts.
Yes, and it's interesting to me that there's this convergence between these two websites because they're starting to even look alike in a lot of ways, and they have a very, very high engagement level. And so we want to look at why that happens and what they're doing. And really, in a nutshell, what these sites are doing is building an enticement for women through the use of photos and captions. And the photos and captions are all about the lifestyle and the home and living and the things that are interesting to women. And in fact, if you look at the navigation menu for Etsy, the first navigation item is art, and then it's home and living, and it's jewelry, then it's women, and then it has men in there, which is kind of funny because when you click on that, it's really not, I don't think, tailored for men. But anyway, men is in there. It's probably women who would buy gifts for men, I guess. And then kids, vintage, weddings, and so forth. So the thing about this is that, to me, anyway, it just is so in tune for the priorities that women have. And I think that understanding your website user and getting this same level of connection with them is real important to your site, and using photography and captions to do that and to tell a story and so forth. You don't go to Pinterest and you don't go to Etsy to watch videos. You don't go to see long paragraphs of content. But once you do click through, you will see there's more information and you'll learn more. And in fact, you might even end up on a website, but you started and the engagement started on Pinterest and on Etsy.
Employers must totally hate these websites, I tell you. I look at Pinterest, and I think Pinterest is more of a magazine. When you go through magazines, you might go through a fashion magazine, and as a guy, I don't go through a ton of them. I mean, occasionally I might have a men's magazine, go, oh, I like that suit. I rip out the page. Let me go check out, what's going on. And it's almost like a pinboard for that, because I know I've built that out, cut pictures out of magazines. I've done that for years. this is just an online version. That's what I see Pinterest as, an online version of magazine clippings.
Right, and Facebook obviously is a big time waster, and employers hate Facebook, and they hate these sites too, especially with their female staff. They're going to spend hours and hours on these sites. But where these sites are different from a Facebook, and where they're different from some other social media sites, is that they have a very strong engagement to e-commerce, especially Etsy. And in fact, on Etsy, there's two sides to the e-commerce. Not only can you go buy on Etsy, but you can set up your own store. And it's interesting because, I hear in the news that there's a high unemployment rate and unemployment rates among women and all that. Well, Etsy's just sitting there waiting for you to start your business. There's no need for an unemployment rate. I mean, if you're creating anything, or if there's anything that you do at home that's cool, whether it's cooking or stuff around the home or jewelry or whatever, Etsy's waiting for you to start a store and have a connection with other folks that would buy this stuff. So there's no need to be unemployed. Go to Etsy.
It looks like, it's a great way to kickstart a real business. If you have something that's a hobby that you might make trinkets and you want to sell them, you might make bracelets that are awesome, but you really don't want to go to craft fair to craft fair to craft fair. This is a great way to have a real business and really kind of test it. It's almost like a test market, if you will. You can test market on Etsy and see if you have a viable product that you can sell.
That's right. And if you do that, just don't leave out some of the basics. Like, for example, you have to have pretty decent photography. This is not stuff you're just going to snap with your iPhone and then cross your fingers.
You've got to have great photography.
Yes, the better
great photography.
Because that's and one of the things that has always amazed me about Pinterest is that Pinterest almost looks like, right out of the get-go, a professional photographer's website. And I can't imagine that all of these people are professional photographers that are posting. They're finding images, or they're taking really good images, and they understand the power of those images to draw in that connection. And like I said, that connection can lead to an e-commerce transaction, because it's not like a Facebook where you're just connecting with someone and communicating. Here, you're building desire for something. And one of the things that happens on Pinterest is people plan their weddings through Pinterest. And if you look at Etsy, wedding planning is huge on Etsy as well. And so they're building the emotional connection, and then also they're going to go buy this stuff as they get married or do their wedding. They're going to buy the hair accessories and the wedding dresses and the invitation cards and the paper flowers and all that. But this is the outlet for that. And it goes beyond the weddings into home and art and jewelry and so forth. But keep in mind, if you're going to do an Etsy store, or even be on Pinterest, you're only going to get back what you put into it. It doesn't mean you're not going to work hard and spend a lot of time on this. You are, but you can see the return. And in fact, tens of thousands of women have seen a business develop out of Etsy, and you're exactly right. It's the first step.
Now, would it be something that would be viable? It seems like it would be a viable option to make sure, if you have an Etsy store set up, that you start populating Pinterest with a lot of those captions. Here, this is what you can do. If you are doing, let's say, wedding accessories at an Etsy store, then going back and setting up albums in Pinterest under weddings. It's like, here's some fabulous ideas, and be able to utilize those captions and be able to sell your content and then link it to your Etsy store. Wouldn't that be a viable way to do it?
It's a great idea. And the thing about what both Etsy and Pinterest do is that it is a connection not only to the e-commerce, but it's also a very strong connection to share. Because women want to tell other women about this cool thing they found. And that's exactly what these two sites can do. And it's very easy to take this information and share it through Facebook or through email, through other sources. It's important, I think, to realize that not only do women get the enjoyment and almost the addiction of searching through the photos and finding cool stuff, but they also get tremendous satisfaction with sharing it and being seen as credible, if you want to say that, because they're sharing really good stuff. The same applies to your website in all industries. These same fundamental things apply. We've got to be careful that when we do a website that we're not too hung up on the mechanics or the basics of our industry or whatever, and that we keep in mind this concept of emotional engagement and sharing and the use of photography and captions and so forth. Pinterest and Etsy have really taken that to another level.
So one of the things you want to make sure, folks, is if you haven't visited Etsy, you haven't visited Pinterest, now's the time to go check those websites out. I know we'll have the links up here as well in this posting, so you can go to the links and check those out if you're not really sure how to spell them or not. Well, we also have some key action items, Tom, for this podcast. What should our viewers and listeners do?
Well, one of the things that I thought about in reviewing for this podcast was how can you make your website addictive to your market? Because I know that there are women right now that just click on that Pinterest button. They can't, not control themselves, or they click on the Etsy button. They can't control themselves. Well, that's what you want to do from your website, because you'll have so much value for these folks. And then we've talked about this before. Use captions and have great photography. Really understand what your users want to see visually and what they want to read about. And realize also that visuals and photography can also be part of navigation system for a website. Keep that in mind, especially with rotating images on the home page and so forth. Try to figure out what is the desire that's present in your website visitors, and how can you tap into that. I mean, this is definitely, I think, one of us said this earlier, it's like porn for women. They're so attracted to this, they got to click through and see this.
Food porn.
Wedding accessory porn. I mean, just because it meets that need that they have to have a great wedding or have a great event, whatever it might be. But the bottom line is leverage these two sites to also figure out how to tap into female markets, especially if you're doing B2C and selling to consumers, because they are definitely the industry leaders, and there's a lot we can learn from them.
And B2B is starting to pick up on Pinterest. That is definitely for sure. People are showcasing other options that are unique options that are B2B, and there is a sector that is starting to pick up. So that's something to be aware of too.
Yes, I can definitely see that.
Well, folks, thank you very much for joining us again for another Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing podcast. If you have suggestions for anything that you would like us to cover or anything you'd like to see on our future podcast, make sure you drop us a line at info@intuitivewebsites.com.
This has been an Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast. For more information and to see all the available podcasts and much more, visit intuitiveblog.com. If you have a website you would like us to review or an issue you would like to see covered in future podcasts, email us at info@intuitivewebsites.com.